The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
The woman, the myth, the legend, my mother.
Hey, I gotta give her a round of applause.
Hi, Mom. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
And she's going to be hilarious, I can tell already. And a couple of weeks ago, we did Twisted Towns, Utica, New York, my hometown. And
Yeah.
I was surprised to find out that I am related to a mobster who, by the way, I think is still alive. He's 95 now, Turk Zogby. Yes. And my mother chimed in with a few. She had texted me with a few stories of her own, so we thought we'd get her on here today. So Mom's on today to talk a little bit about being a part of mafia life.
It was wonderful. I loved it.
I have so many questions to ask about mafia life. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, here we go. So, Mom, you grew up. You graduated from high school in Utica in the 60s.
Yes, I did.
So I was born in 71. And so you were essentially in the middle of the mafia heyday in Utica.
Absolutely. But we didn't call it the mafia. We knew who they were and they knew where they were, but we didn't call them anything.
So
were they called family members with quotation marks around them?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what you remember from those days. Was there a lot of gangster activity going on?
Yes, but surprisingly enough, it was kept kind of hush-hush. Unless you were actually in the family, you didn't know about it. And but in the same respect, a lot of the members were in the police department. So
we talked about that because you had texted with me and you told me, and I said, "Can I say names?" And you said yes.
Absolutely.
So.
Are you lucky? Like, has anybody come knocking at your door and like, Mom, we've got to talk to you about some information you passed along in a podcast?
No, I'm incognito right now.
So give us some stories. What were some of the things that went on? How did you know Turk and how well did you know Turk?
Well, it started when I was a young teen, and we would all wait on the busy corner in Utica for our bus home from school. And I would be talking to guys, of course. And my cousin Paul, who was a Utica police officer, used to pull up with the lights on, drag me off the busy corner, and put me on a bus because I wasn't able to talk to anybody. He was very protective. So I started standing on a different corner. And he showed up. I mean, there were eyes everywhere. Did you ever feel like weirded out by it at all, or was it just so natural to you because you grew up in it that it didn't bother you? It was just natural to me. A lot of them were family members, and the ones that I wasn't actually related to were family members. So it's something I just grew up with.
What kind of things were going on in Utica at the time? Was it a lot? Did you know about murders and stuff? People getting beat up?
Yes. Well, there was a lot of people that opened their mouth big once and then didn't do it a second time because they knew better. I don't really know about any murders, but there was a lot of shady stuff going on in a lot of places. And like I say, we all knew, well, the ones in my circle knew who it was and where it was going on, but we just didn't talk about it.
So when I think of the mob, like the movie that comes to mind is Marilyn Monroe, Some Like It Hot. And you know which movie I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely. I love it. With spats.
So the mob is trying to find the two of them because they saw the Valentine's Day murder, I'm guessing is what it was. And, they're running around trying to stay away from the mob. So they go to Florida, join an all-women's band, and have to be what were their names? What were the names that they came up with?
Geraldine and
Daphne.
Daphne and Geraldine, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So blah, 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 blah. But one of my favorite scenes is where the mob, comes to the resort that they're at to have a meeting. And I put quotation marks around that, a family meeting. And of course, they're under the table hiding, and you know, somebody pulls out a machine gun, and a bunch of them are dead. I mean, was there that? I know that's kind of a silly look at it, but was there that kind of feeling going on at the time?
Well, there was that kind of feeling, but yet it never came to fruition. Most times, the ones that we had around, the family members and things, just a word or a look in a certain way kind of took care of a problem.
So by family,
Did that ever work? Did that ever work with your daughter at all?
Yeah, no, but I'll tell you what happened. When I was 15 or 16, I wanted to date this guy named Johnny Morocco. And he was.
Oh, my God.
Yes. And he was a would-be trying to come up gangster. And my cousin Paul found out and talked to him, and I never heard from him again. But he was around. He was around. I'd see him, but he'd cross the street.
So let me ask you this. When you talk about the family, do you mean by blood or do you mean the mafia family?
Both, because they were both.
So, I mean, with the name Johnny Morocco, number one, you have to be in the mob. and number two, when you said that your cousin that Paul talked to him, I thought, did he really talk to him or is it something else? But then you said that you actually did see him around town.
Yes, I did see him around.
Or was he, talking to the fishes?
I'd actually see him running away from me.
So let's talk.
I talked to your boyfriend, Rocky, the other day. He won't be bothering you anymore.
He's not as good a boy as you deserve there.
That's right.
So let's talk about Turk, though. How did you know Turk? How well did you know Turk?
I knew him fairly well. I knew him personally and everything, but it was always at kind of a distance because he always had people do his things for him. Even if he wanted to send me a message, it would be through someone. But all I would have to do...
sounds so weird to me. It's like a movie.
Let me tell you, there was this man, an older Italian man, and we called him Unc. That was his short for uncle. And he was in his 70s back then. But he was the typical, with the flashy shoes and everything. And at the time, the hot place to go was DeCastro's at Sylvan Beach, New York. And it was a big nightclub. And we would get to DeCastro's and he would already be in there. And there would be this big long table set up with chairs. And all I had to do was say, "We're with Unc." We'd get right in. That was it. We'd get right in as long as we were with Unc. And we were perfectly safe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you feel safe?
Oh, absolutely.
You never felt like you personally were in
No, because I knew everybody knew better than to do anything to me.
Did you ever worry about the other, because there were a lot of different families at that time. We talked about a few of them. Did you ever worry about other families?
No, I never did. I was always relaxed about it and everything because I kind of grew up with it. So I really didn't have the main worry was my cousin Paul keep putting me on the bus.
Did he ever put you on the wrong bus, Mom?
There was only one going to where I lived.
Hey, we're going to take you downtown, honey. But I mean, your story about going to, was it DeCastro's, you said?
DeCastro's, yes.
I mean, that is typical mob story right there. We're with Unc, and then they get seated at this big long table.
And you would see it. You would see them all with their patent leather shoes on, the men, and the, dress pants, and the shirts only buttoned halfway up. And this was my life. This is, and all those girls with their hair teased up to the ceiling and tons of makeup and...
It just seems kind of funny because you think that the movie depiction of mobsters in that time in history is, a little bit over the top, a little caricature-ish, if you will. And then you hear stories from an actual family member of the mob and you find out it really was like pinstripe suits and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you ever date one?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
His name was Bobby. Yes, I did date him. And it was really,
I wonder what Bobby's
really cool.
doing. I'm going to look up Bobby's number here and get him on the line.
I wish we could get Bobby on the line. That would be great.
And there was Bill. Yeah, we were all, you kind of dated without being boyfriend and girlfriend because we all just hung out together at different times. Right. And it was like group dating.
Huh. Interesting.
That, in this day and age, that could be fun too.
Oh, boy. So you said that my brother actually did Turk's roof a while back.
Yes.
Redid his roof. Do you know where he lives now?
No, I don't. I
can't believe he's 95. He's still kicking though. Did he get out? I mean, he went in and out of jail.
Oh, absolutely.
Several times. I thought he was implicated in a murder.
Oh, he was. Several.
She says, oh, he was.
But
he
see,
was.
It was just Turk, and we all accepted it.
That's something. I'm
I don't think I've ever thought about growing up in a family where like, yeah, he may have murdered several people, but you know what? We're going to invite him to Christmas dinner anyway.
Well, that's what she said to me. She goes, but he was really a nice guy. I'm like, what?
No, he was.
To who?
He was. If he thought a family was hungry or something or anything like that, he'd take care of them, and not necessarily somebody that was in with us.
Right.
Did you know any of the ones that we talked about? You haven't listened to that episode. That was a great episode. You haven't listened to it yet, but any of the ones that I talked about, like Crazy Al Marone. Did you know Al Marone?
Oh my goodness, that name sounds very familiar.
Oh boy, he got killed. He got murdered. He had dinner with.
She probably knows who did it and can't say anything about it.
I know, he's in witness protection.
Repercussion, exactly.
No, he was at dinner with Louis Brindisi.
Yes.
And
at DeCastro's on a night in front of a long table. And he came in and said, I'm with Unc. Exactly.
And then they parted ways, and
yes.
Al was taking his girlfriend home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it went down, and he tried to shield his girlfriend and ended up taking the hit. But obviously it was for him anyways. There were a lot of names back then. Do you know anything about the Don Grillo murders? Were you...
I know of them. I heard of them. I wasn't privy to anything really, to do with them.
Right.
But they all basically came from the same group. Anything that went on, it was a very dominant group, the group I was in.
The group I was in, the gang I was in.
And they were in, but we didn't consider it. We considered it our group. And that's the way it was. And we had certain places we go. On certain nights, we go to Dante's Inferno on Oneida Square. And there was a bar. And we always had the one under the bar, and it was all of our group. And then a few nights later, there'd be another place. So it was just.
Well, I guess when you're in the middle of it, you don't look at it from that perspective that Todd and I are looking at it from, where it's like, oh my God. And I when I found all this out, the more research I did about it, the more I realized, as I was in the 70s growing up, there was craziness going on everywhere around me, and I'm a little kid. I don't know the difference. And then, by the 90s, when there was a big federal case that took most of them down because basically they couldn't keep their mouths shut, and that was their eventual downfall. But up until then, it was pretty crazy in Utica.
It absolutely was.
Huh. Very interesting.
Very cool. And occasionally during this podcast, we might be talking about something else, and I may have a question regarding that, so I'll just pop in with it.
It may come to him, from nowhere.
Because it's like I said, it's fascinating, and now to hear kind of like a firsthand tale of it, it's not that far off from Hollywood's version of what mobster life was like.
Now, I believe it was the Falcone brothers who ran.
She's
nodding her head. She's nodding her head. And, well, it was funny. The Anceras, there's a lot of names around today who had relatives who were involved in the mob. There's a ton of them, and I grew up with a lot of these names. But
so I have a question now. Like I do have a question, and I think my question is this. Is it truly gone, or... is there still? Do you feel like there's still some connections there that are still made today because of the past and family connections from that time period?
Yes, I absolutely do, because it's not so much the older adults now, because they've kind of faded away a little bit, but their children who are adults now who aren't really actively in these things still were raised with it, and so it still does go on, but not to the extent that it did when I was young.
Yeah, I would think that it would have calmed down.
Nobody's pulling up on the street, dragging a girl in and taking her on the bus or anything like that.
Taking her on the bus.
When you grew up in this family, it became part of your heritage, so you accepted it.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Very cool.
One thing that we discovered was that I can't remember which of the Falcones. One of the Falcones, the older Falcone, moved to Miami in the 60s, but he still had a lot of dealings up here, and his brother ran the family up here.
Yeah.
And he lived on Mohawk Street. Did you know that? He actually lived on Mohawk Street about 5 houses from where my father lives now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was interesting.
The house that your father lives in now was a guy I dated in high school, an Italian guy, who turned out to be a policeman because he wanted to do something about things that were going on.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why you didn't end up with him, right?
Absolutely. Well, I trapped him quick.
All right. So thanks to my mom for coming on and filling us in. It kind of rounded out the whole, our whole thought process on the mafia in Utica. We had unanswered questions, and so it's good to have you come on and kind of answer questions from the viewpoint of someone who was right in the middle of it.
Yeah, now I have to go witness protection.
The 5 listeners of our podcast I don't think are part of the mob, so I think you're okay, actually.
I think you're safe. There's somebody in Iowa, and, it's like, my sister, so I think we're good. But thanks, Mom.
We make podcasting easy. Mind Garden Media can get you going on your very own podcast. With many years in the broadcast and audio industry, Mind Garden Media can edit, fully produce, and provide all the web distribution services. We're podcasters too, so we'll guide you every step of the way to a professional sounding podcast production. For information, email themindgardenmedia@gmail.com, themindgardenmedia@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook.
So let's play my dad's audio. And don't forget, the audio isn't the best because I had to I told him I was telling you the story. So it's a video in my hand while I'm driving that I had to convert over to audio. But it's pretty funny.
Lying to your dad.
I was.
I love it.
I was.
I love it. Lying to your dad for a bit on a podcast. Here it comes.
All right. So tell me the story about Turk's first job.
Well, it was Dodge City. They used to call it Dodge City years ago when it first opened. And then it was Carbone Dodge afterwards. Him and another guy cut a hole in the roof and went in and robbed the place. I guess he got away with that.
Do you remember what year that was?
No, it had to be.
Was I alive back then?
Oh, no.
No, it had to be because I found a story about him from like the 50s.
Had to be in the 70s, maybe.
All right.
60s or 70s. And I'm sure he did other jobs before. Then, probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago, a guy got shot on the front porch down on, I think it was Mary Street or Catherine Street. And he got sent up for that.
How long would you say he was in jail?
He never did no big time. I think he served 8 years.
Really?
Yeah, for killing a guy. And then probably, it might have even been longer than that because down on Bleecker Street probably 20, 30 years ago, maybe longer, I don't know. They had a loan sharking deal going on. And it shot a guy down there. So he got sent up for that. Served about 8 years. Got out, and then he had a truck, and he was going around, he was making sausage and driving around selling sausage and meats and stuff,
Oh my God.
And then you might even remember this, probably 20 years ago, they had a shoplifting ring that was going around, and they would hire these people to go shoplift all this stuff. Because years ago, you'd get away with it,
Right.
And you walk out with about anything you want. And then they sell all this stuff.
So he's 95 now, and up until about 20 years ago, he was still playing.
Well, it's probably longer than that. I lose track of it. Because I've been to the house there 17 years. So, yeah, it was probably...
And you would go have coffee with him all the time? Buy him breakfast?
Yeah, over on James Street. And last time I saw him, because us guys, we haven't during the pandemic, but it'd be 5 or 6 of us, like Monday nights, we go over to Dunkin' Donuts, North Utica, and have coffee, and him and his wife would come in there.
Is she still alive? I didn't know he was married.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, all the times he went to jail and this and that, she stuck by him.
Wow.
And she had a good job at camera. He never really worked there.
Well, he didn't have to.
He
didn't have to.
Because he told me once, he says, I'm retired.
He's retired from gangstering.
He says, I get Social Security. He says, but Barry, he says, I don't make nothing. I think he even made about $400 or something like that. And thank God for her. Then he's got a son that lives with him. He still lives with him, I think. Jack Jr. Well, that's what Turk's name is, Jack.
Right.
And it's Jack Jr. and he lives with him. He's probably, he's probably in his 50s or something, 40. He's a little.
Thank you.
He's a little odd. He's a little strange. I guess he's got problems or something, So he'll probably always live with him and have the house when his parents died. But.
So, and the last time you saw him was maybe like a year and a half ago?
Well, it's over a year because we haven't had coffee in over a year. Probably a year and a half ago or so.
I had no idea about any of this. You and my mother both. Yeah. I had no idea. Well, thank you for that story.
So, a quick couple of points. Number one, I love that story about them cutting a hole in the roof.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah, because it reminds me of something like Lucy would do to get in someplace, cut a hole in the roof or whatever.
And Shirley, do you remember the one where they, in their mind, they pictured breaking into this office to get something back that they'd left there by mistake? And in their mind, they're, these great cat burglars, and they go in through those, all that kind of stuff. And the other point is my father not the best storyteller in the world? He's hilarious to listen to.
Yes.
Oh, my God. He's hilarious to listen to.